I want you to take a moment to think about a time when you were super uncomfortable, like crawl out of your skin uncomfortable. And hold that in mind, and I'm going to show you a video of a man that I studied with in Thailand. And as a trigger warning, he has a wound on his leg that's really hard to look at. Doesn't this guy look comfortable and even happy? Turns out that the thing on his leg is a tumor eating its way through his bone and muscle and nerves and skin. And he's talking here about using meditation to separate the pain in his leg from himself. He liked to say, "My leg hurts, but I don't." My name is Scott Stonington. I'm a doctor. I practice primary care and hospital medicine. And I'm also an anthropologist, and my research is on end-of-life care and pain management in Thailand. And today I want to share some transformative ideas, a little bit about approaching pain, but more than that, about a whole range of uncomfortable things. One day I was in Thailand, rounding on a cancer ward with a group of surgeons. And after each patient was presented, I asked, "How's their pain control?" And the head surgeon always answered, "They're tolerating it well." And eventually he paused and turned to me and said, "What's with you Americans and comfort? These people have cancer. Do you think that's supposed to be easy?" And then we all laughed because everybody likes making fun of Americans. But then he explained more seriously and said, "Pain is part of human life. Zero pain is impossible. If your goal is zero pain, then you're addicted before you ever even reach for something to take your pain away. If their pain is extreme, then we treat it until it's tolerable. But a goal of zero is a road to suffering." That was the first time I'd heard about pain and suffering as separate things. Later in my fieldwork in Thailand, I took care of a woman with pancreatic cancer who decided not to take any pain medications while she died from her tumor. She meditated 24 hours a day. And as long as she was focused on not wanting her pain to go away, she didn't suffer from it. She took breaks from meditating to talk with me because she wanted to teach me. But by the end of our conversations, her face would start to contort as she started to suffer from the pain that had been there all along. One day I was with her when she went into a particularly terrible bout of pain. It was like her tumor had coughed up some evil humor into her blood, and she suddenly tensed up and started shaking, and her back arched, and she started moaning. And I said, "Please let us give you some morphine." And she looked at me and said, "You are having a problem with this pain right now. Stop distracting me. I'm trying to study it." That was such a striking moment for me. First, there's no way I could have tolerated that amount of pain. But it was more than that. She had called me out for not even being able to stand her pain, even though it wasn't in my own body. My experience of that moment was more about the uncomfortable space between us that the pain had created. It's that kind of discomfort that I want to talk about today. I'll pause and ask you, are there certain topics with certain people, like maybe family members, that are so uncomfortable that you feel like if you said something out loud, it would break something, and so it just sits in the space between you, unresolved and festering? That's how that pain felt in the space between us. And in the years after coming back from Thailand, I was plagued by this thought. What if my inability to sit through that kind of discomfort was separating me from people? What if it was keeping me from taking care of them? Clinically, I started to notice this everywhere. I would write a prescription to make an uncomfortable interaction with a patient go away. In the hospital, I would avoid going into certain patients' rooms. Maybe they were waiting for a diagnosis that might be cancer, and until we knew for sure, what was there to talk about? It would just be unnecessarily uncomfortable. But pain, again, was where I noticed it the most. Now, pain management has gotten very confusing in the last 10 or 15 years, mostly because of opioid pain medications like oxycodone and morphine. And we used to use a lot of them, but since the opioid epidemic, there's been a push, obviously, not to use them. So there's this huge tension. If there's a person sitting in front of me in horrible pain that hasn't gone away with other treatments, I have to make a choice. I can let them be in pain, which feels horrible, or I can write a prescription for a narcotic, which also feels horrible. The whole thing is so uncomfortable that many of my colleagues, my doctor colleagues, avoid patients, avoid seeing anyone with chronic pain because they don't want to deal with that feeling. I think my Thai patient would say that that is cowardly, that we at least should do the hard work of sitting there and being uncomfortable. So I've been trying a new approach in clinic and in life. A few years ago, a woman named Martha came to me looking for a new doctor, and she had a ton of pain. She had broken down joints and hardware in her bones from a car crash, and terrible clogged arteries in her legs, and a pinched nerve in her back. And her prior doctors had escalated her doses of oxycodone to these massive levels. And it wasn't really helping. I mean, it would help when she would reach for the pills and take them. It would give her a little bit of relief, but overall her pain levels hadn't changed, even though she'd had these increasing doses, and she was cloudy in her thinking and not very functional in her life. And we couldn't take away her medication suddenly because she would go into withdrawal and have horrible pain. But clearly we couldn't keep them. And part of this is because really high doses of opioids can cause more pain over time, and they can cause cognitive problems, and they can make you less functional. So we had to do this thing. We had to slowly take away the very thing that she was using to make her pain better. When I pitched this to her, she said, "That sounds like Chinese water torture, but I think I have to try." And so I see her once a month, sometimes twice a month, and I see her for a double appointment. And when she shares with me about her pain, I try to imagine it in my own body, which is impossible because I'm not in her body. Plus, she has to be in her body every second of every day, and I only see her once a month. But still, I try. At least enough to get to the point where I also really want her pain to go away. Our visits are so uncomfortable that I find my voice getting strained and my body getting tense. She decides each month whether we go down on her medications or not. But when we get time to decide, it feels like we're on a team together. And I think that's partly because we're both sitting there together in at least a little bit of the discomfort connected to her pain. And we're gathering momentum. She's currently down to 1/3 of the medicines that she started with. She says that she's tolerating her pain better, even though the pain is still there. And she's getting out of the house and doing some of the things that she cares about. So I've had my own severe chronic pain in my life. And this possibility of having pain without suffering has totally changed my life. But the lesson from my Thai patient and from Martha too is a little bit different from that. It's about the potential harmful effects of avoiding being uncomfortable and the benefits of sitting through discomfort. So I invite you in your own life to notice when you're avoiding being uncomfortable and what the results are from that. And I'd say start with the little things, like next time you reach for your smartphone, ask yourself, are you avoiding something uncomfortable, like talking to the person next to you? But then move on to bigger things. Do you surround yourself by people who agree with you? What if we could learn to connect with one another without avoiding the topics that divide us? So I'm not saying be like a bull in a china closet, intentionally trying to make everybody uncomfortable all the time. But my Thai patient taught me that there are kinds of discomfort that show that you're doing something right, not wrong. And she said, "Stop distracting me. I'm trying to study this." Her tool was using her curious mind to find that edge of her comfort and investigate what happened when she pushed through it. So if you come upon something uncomfortable that has the chance of decreasing your suffering and the suffering of those around you, then I say take courage. Step into it. Get to know it. Make it your ally. See if you can use it as a tool to transform something important. Thank you.